Chapter 1. On the day that Hitler marched into Vienna, Professor Somerville was leading his not noticeably grateful expedition down a defile so narrow that overshadowing precipices blocked out all but a strip of the clear blue sky of Central Asia. "You can't possibly get the animals down this way," a Belgian geologist he had been compelled to take along had complained. But Quin had just said vaguely that he thought it might be all right, by which he meant that if everyone nearly killed themselves and did exactly what he told them, there was a chance. And now, sure enough, the chasm widened. They passed the first trees growing wherever roots could take hold and made their way through forests of pine and cedar to reach, at last, the bottom of the valley. "Oh, we'll camp here," said Quin, pointing to a place where the untroubled river, idling past, dragged at the overhanging willows, and drifts of orchids and asphodels studded the grass. Later, when the mules were grazing and the smoke from the fire curled upwards in the still air, he leant back against a tree and took out the battered pipe which many women had tried to replace. He was 30 years old now. Lines were etched into the crumpled-looking forehead and the sides of the mouth, and the dark eyes could look hard, but at this moment he was entirely happy, for he had been right. In spite of the gloomy prognostications of the Belgian, whose spectacles had been stepped on by a yak, in spite of the assurances of his porters that it was impossible to reach the remoter valleys of the Siwalik Range in the spring, he had found as rich a collection of Miocene fossils as anyone could hope for. Wrapped now in woodwool and canvas, more valuable than any golden treasure from a tomb, was the unmistakable evidence of Ramapithecus, one of the earliest ancestors of man. There were 3 weeks of travelling still along the river valley before they could load their specimens onto lorries for the drive down to Simla, but the problems now would be social. The drinking of terrible tea with the villagers, bedbugs, hospitality. A lammergeier hung like a nail in the sky. The bells of browsing cattle came from a distant meadow, and the wail of a flute. Quin closed his eyes. News of the outside world, when it came at last, was brought by an Indian army officer in the rest house above Simla, and was delivered in the order of importance. Oxford had won the boat race, an outsider named Battleship had romped home to Aintree. Oh, and Hitler's annexed Austria, marched into Vienna without a shot being fired. "Will you still go?" asked Milner, his research assistant and a trusted friend. "I don't know. I suppose it's a terrific honour. I mean, they don't give away degrees in a place like that." Quin shrugged. It was not the first honorary degree he had been awarded. Persuaded 3 years ago to take up a professorship in London, he still managed to pursue his investigations in the more exotic corners of the world, and he had been lucky with his finds. "Berger arranged it. He's dean of the science faculty now. If it wasn't for him, I doubt if I'd go. I've no desire to go anywhere near the Nazis, but I owe him a lot, and his family were very good to me. I stayed with them one summer." He smiled, remembering the excitable, affectionate Bergers, the massive meals in the Viennese apartment, and the wooden house on the Gründelsee. There'd been an accident-prone anthropologist